welcome back to Magic TV. My name's Craig. It is 9 o'clock. It's time for a Talk Magic, and anybody on the channel will know that the guy that I'm sitting with today is a hero of mine, and I don't use those words lightly. He's a legend of magic. He has been there, done it, and then some. The one and only Scott Alexander. Scott, how are you?
Hey, I am doing great. Thank you for having me on there, Craig. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much. I know how busy you are. You're jetting around the country. I know you're really busy.
I'm leaving for Las Vegas on Tuesday.
Oh, wow. Doing anything fun over there?
Yeah, a little fun and a little work. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks for squeezing this in before you fly over to Vegas. I really appreciate it.
Sure, you got it. I'm just wondering, is my hair okay? Let me just check this real quick. It's better than Gorilla Glue, am I right?
It looks great, man.
All right.
Oh my God, this is going to be awesome. Now, I have talked about you on this channel a hell of a lot. So a lot of people know of you, but for the few people that are watching this that have never heard of Scott Alexander before, I said at the beginning, you've been there, you've done that, you have, but let's start at the very, very beginning. When did you get into magic, Scott? Was it the typical origin story for most magicians about like getting a magic kit when you were a kid?
Yeah, well, the very beginning, I guess. So my mommy really loved my daddy, and they laid down. Let's not go that far back. Yeah, I got fascinated by magic the first time. The first image of seeing magic happen, I remember I was probably about 4 or 5. My mother tells me, and it was on a black and white TV show, and it was Lucille Ball, and I remember her in this black and white leotard that kind of looked like a tuxedo, and she had this stick with a white tip, and she went bam, and the black stick changed into a black handkerchief with a white tip just instantaneously, and I was like, what the heck is that? And my grandmother and my mom were like, oh, that's magic, that's a magic trick. And I was like, well, I need to find out what this is. And there was at the time there was a magic shop in Baltimore, in Maryland, where I grew up. And that magic shop was at a mall. It was like a kiosk, basically. And I went there and I got my first little magic kit. And the first thing I remember out of there is that spiked coin. You know, you put the $50 in there with a plastic thing, and you put the 8 spikes through it. So I made up my own little James Bond routine with it, where, you know, oh, Dr. No has stuck him to the table and he's going to put the spikes in. And that was my first little magic piece that I did from the, you know, the slum magic from the from the magic kit. Yeah.
And when did you start performing professionally? Did you ever have a period of time where you were like getting a proper job, or have you always been a full-time entertainer?
After, like, while I was in high school, I mean, I did my first paid gig for $5 when I was 10. I remember it was a Halloween party, and I had got Tarbell or something, and I had decided to take a zombie, like a plastic little pumpkin, and attach it to a coat hanger and make it float behind a stick. You know, that was my big finale, the floating pumpkin. And then I had all the kids drop candy in it or something. I remember doing that for a neighbor. And then it was the typical kind of trail. I did, you know, the blue and gold Cub Scout banquets, and, you know, the local lodge or club meeting who my mom's friend was a member of. And, oh, Scott's a magician. Let's have him come do a little show for everybody. That'd be nice. You know, so that kind of happened. And then while I was in high school, I did have a job. I worked at a place that was a costume shop, so they sold costumes. They fit ballet shoes too, so I fit ballet shoes on people, and sold makeup, theatrical props, magic tricks, things like that for a little bit. And I had a very, very brief stint, maybe about 2 weeks, working at, my buddy worked at Taco Bell, and he said, come get a part-time job with me. So I worked at Taco Bell for about 2 weeks, and that sucked. And I said, nope. And one other job right across the street from the theatrical place was a movie theater, and I worked you know, behind the concession stand of the movie theater, and then later sweeping up popcorn and stuff. And I remember creating an idea that one of my college theater professor gave me, put it in my head when I cleaned out that theater. And I only worked there for about a month maybe, but I think they still use this to this day. I took a leaf blower and I went to the back row and started blowing all the trash up to the front of the front of the theater, and then I could just sweep it up real quick and easy. So yeah, trying to use my creative magical thinking even for regular jobs. But those were the only things I had right after high school. I went to college and studied, got a bachelor's degree in theater on the 7-year plan. It took me a lot longer to get through than I had originally intended because I was working part-time doing magic shows, birthday parties, this and that. And then finally, when I graduated, I started performing in universities and colleges. So,
A lot of people that know you, they think of you as a stand-up performer. And I do want to talk about performing stand-up in a bit. But is that where you started, or did you start off doing close-up? Because you brought some fantastic close-up effects out over the years. Did you start off doing close-up and then transition to sort of stand-up and stage, or was stage always where you kind of saw yourself in the very beginning?
Well, I made the transition. I remember learning both kind of simultaneously because the very first book that I bought was from one of my early mentors, Raymond the magician. He was one of the guys who did all the spook shows, and he grew up in the hometown, or I grew up in the hometown where he lived. And the first book I bought was him, From Royal Road to Card Magic. I bought Royal Road. And I started learning Royal Road. And the reason I liked Royal Road was because a lot of magic books I had at the time, like Bill Tarr's book, Now You See It, Now You Don't, or Henry Hay, it really didn't give you a routine to go with it. But the thing that was cool about Royal Road is it had a premise. Everything had a little routine. It had a story you could tell. And that I loved. And that kind of fostered my fascination for, theater and storytelling and all that kind of stuff. So I was learning from Royal Road. But also, my dad would take me down to Phil Thomas's Yogi Magic Shop in Baltimore when I was in my teenage years, and it was there that I would buy the prop. I bought the Vanishing Cane that I saw Lucille Ball do after saving up money from doing magic shows, and I bought a real zombie, and so it kind of happened simultaneously. I didn't really gravitate towards one or the other. I just loved magic, and I loved learning every facet of it. So it happened kind of together, the close-up and stand-up magic. And I always dreamed, of course, of doing the big stage illusions, which I did finally get to do down the road. But yeah, and I would make all those out of cardboard boxes at the same time. In the back of the Tarbell course, it would talk about the Arabian tent. So I'm cutting out cardboard and making an Arabian tent. So I really was fascinated in all aspects of magic and just kind of started learning everything I could, soaking it up.
And did you used to do kid shows as well? Because your handkerchief in Apple, what's it called?
Applejacked. Yeah.
I mean, the presentation that you've got on there in front of a whole bunch of kids is just one of the best kid show routines I've ever seen.
Oh, thanks. I love doing kid shows. I have 3 kids myself, and they're all 16, 14, and 11. So, I mean, I'm the goofy dad who does all that crap. You same boat over there in your department. Yeah, I did kid shows. I cut my teeth on kid shows. Kids are the toughest audience because they don't let you get away with anything. It's in your hand, so you got to be good. But yeah, I did kid shows. That's how I supported a lot of my college tuition. I did kid shows on the weekends, 2, 3, 4 kid shows a weekend. And working with kids is great because they are a tough audience. But when you really get them, with that wow moment, they're like, you see their eyes turn into saucers and like, oh my gosh, magic is real, magic is cool. So and I get to act goofy. I'm a big kid myself, so I get to act like an idiot and do stupid things, and it's fun.
Some people say, and it's been said a lot on various different forums, that if you're a serious close-up magician, or you perform corporates, or you perform on big stages, you shouldn't be seen performing for children because it degrades you as a performer. Do you believe that? Do you believe that? Because I just wonder, because you seem to be able to perform for everybody at the drop of the hat, and you've had such a successful career.
I've got that Johnny Thompson mentality. I'm a general practitioner at heart, do a little bit of everything, but I mean, your audiences, your clients, the people you work for are probably not going to cross-pollinate. Like the corporate guy is not going to see you down the street Saturday afternoon at Donna's house doing a birthday party, right? So why wouldn't you take advantage of every avenue, multiple income streams from multiple sources of magic if you can do it? If you really love magic and you can entertain children and not just stand up there and be a clod, and bore the kids to death. And you can also then you do that Robert Houdin old chestnut. You're an actor playing the part of magician, so you act like a kid's magician, and you'd have fun doing that. And then you put on your suit, your tie, your jacket, you load up your pockets, and now you're the fancy wedding performer. Or now you put on the Mark Zuckerberg uniform, and then you do your TED talk for a corporation or whatever. So you can wear many hats as a magician. What did Eugene Berger say? The House of Magic has many rooms, right? And you can occupy as many as you like, as long as you can do it effectively, I think.
Well, somebody asked.
Now, there are some who don't or can't, and shouldn't. But you have to be self-aware. You have to have a little bit of self-awareness to know what you can and can't do.
Well, somebody asked me on the channel a few weeks ago, what's the best kids trick that I've ever seen? And I told them that it's one that you put on one of your Penguin Christmas specials. I don't know if you remember it. It was just 2 brown bags, 2 paper bags.
Oh, yeah.
And a bottle. And oh my God, you had 10 minutes out of that thing.
Yeah, that idea was inspired by Carol Fox. He had a routine like that. And I think he might have done a little piece of it on Magic Ranch. And I just kind of expanded it out and made it a genuine kid show trick with all the goofy moments and stuff in it. But even that paper bag thing, kids go nuts over it. It's really a mystery. It sounds like something's landing in there. And once they buy into that, then you've got them. And now they're super curious. So, yeah, that was a great one. I'm glad you remembered that. I use that quite a lot. Nothing in this hand. Nothing in this hand, right? And then the bottle jumps across. So it's a transposition, it's a vanish, it's got a little bit of everything in it. So it's a good piece.
It's awesome. So you became a full-time performer, and you were doing everything. You were doing close-up, you're doing stage. But I mean, you're at the top of your game. You perform all over the world. You are like one of the top magicians in the whole of the world. So or at least in my opinion, how did you get to? I mean, you
ask David Copperfield.
I mean,
I know what you're saying. I know what you're saying. Yeah.
How do we go from you kind of being a jobbing magician, which you probably were when you left uni or college, to headlining Vegas, which I mean is something that you've done? And let's be fair here. Let's be clear. 99% of the magicians in the world will never have been able to say, I've headlined my own Vegas show. That's something that everybody would want to be able to do. And you did that fairly early on in your career. So how did you go from there to there? Are there any tips that you can give people as to how to kind of catapult their career to?
Yeah. Well, part of it was because I was a general practitioner, so to speak, because I could do not only stand-up magic, parlor style, but I could also do the grand illusions. As I mentioned, when I left uni, I was performing at colleges and universities, right? I graduated, got my degree in theater, peace out, and now I jumped in a van with my future wife, and we drove up and down the East Coast of the United States performing for colleges and universities, sometimes 3 a day. I found a college agent out of the phone book. Remember those phone books? But I found a college agent. I called them up. I said, here's my videotape. What? Yeah. Now I guess you would send them a link. And they said, okay, well, we're just starting. It's a new agency. We're just beginning. So we don't really have a magician right now. So that's a good first tip. Find a new agency, one that hasn't been around for, 30 years. That's a good way in the door, because maybe they're looking for you instead of while you're looking for them. But yeah, they just happened to not have a magician. They were mostly representing musical acts, bands, poetry slams, things like that. So I was the weirdo in the bunch. So he sent me out to do all these colleges. So he started getting all these colleges, and I ended up in Florida at performing at FAU with my wife. What were we doing at the time? We were doing a zigzag and a broom suspension, and then I would do close-up after the show for the kids in the common room or whatever as well. And then I was doing some stand-up pieces. The early razor blades were in there early, and what else? Linking rings, I think I did. But so while I was in Florida, I always if I go to a town, I'd always like to find the magic shop, or where it is. So I would go there, and I went to this magic costume place, and they said that Bill Malone had a place, nearby. So I drove over to find Bill Malone, say hi, I'm a magician, introduce myself. You never know what's going to happen, and at this point, Bill Malone had been on The World's Greatest Magic, so he was like, You know, it was like, oh, Bill Malone, Bill Malone. So I was like, screw it. I'm just going to go try to meet Bill Malone, right? So, opportunity. So I did end up meeting Bill and went to the resort where he had a magic bar. And he offered me a job. He said, if you ever want to move to Florida, I'll hire you. I said, that was a great invisible deck presentation you did. The Bill and Lemon you did was great. In fact, I ended up teaching Bill after I worked for Bill there. He was like, can you show me that Bill and Lemon? And I was Scott Grocki back then. That's my actual last name. It's Polish, so I changed it to Alexander because thanks to Dan Harlan, because nobody could pronounce Grocki once I got into Caesars, which I'll get to in a second. But I ended up teaching Bill Malone my Bill and Lemon, which is what he taught on his DVDs, which is the version that I taught him. He added the thing coming out of the shoe, I think. That was his little take on it. And then, so I worked for Bill for a year, learned a whole lot from Bill. I learned how to work a corporate room, north, east, southwest, make a bunch of noise, get all the audience, get the client to hear all this hubbub going on. And then you can kind of slide into your, I'll drink a little wine and then do a trick over here, and I'll have a little chocolate and I'll do a little trick over here. Just get the room in a frenzy first, and then you're home free. So I learned a lot from Bill there. And I had gone out on a corporate gig, first time ever to Vegas, that I booked while I was in Florida. Saw Vegas, fell in love with it, walked around, saw every show. I snuck into Siegfried and Roy in the back door. Check that out. I snuck into this place called the Magical Empire through the gift shop. That's how you get in, through the gift shop. And I went in just to peek around, just to see what it was like. And I ended up bumping into Tobias Beckwith, who is Jeff McBride's manager. And I said, "This place is awesome. How do you get to work here?" And he's like, "Well, you send this guy a videotape, and here's who books it." So I took him to lunch. He gave me all that information. And then the following week, I sent the guy a videotape, and they just happened to be looking for someone at that moment who could do parlor and illusions. So my video had the sword basket, it had the canvas-covered box on it, plus it also had the razor blades, the chop cup, the invisible deck, and all that kind of stuff on it. So I ended up getting hired for 2 weeks from that videotape, and also I filled in for Daryl and Michael Amar one night in the Secret Pagoda, which was the parlor theater, and then I filled in one night for the Pendragons on their Sunday night, the night they needed off, as the fill-in guy. So it was supposed to be a 2-week gig. I thought, awesome, I played Vegas, this is great. But then I just kept getting a little bit better and a little bit better and a little bit better, and finally they were like, "Hey, how would you like to do a week all to yourself?" Great. So from those opportunities, and the reason I got that asked to do it was because I was easy to work with. I wasn't a pain in the, ass like everybody else was. They had hired somebody to fill in the week before, and the guy was just difficult. He was a prima donna, and they said, "We don't want to work with him. Sorry. That's why we're looking for somebody else." So being accommodating helped me to keep that gig, and then I ended up turning that 2-week thing into a 7-year engagement in Vegas. So that's kind of how all that fell out.
Well, one thing that, and we'll talk about this a little bit later on when we talk about creativity, but one thing that you do, even if you're doing a routine that everybody knows, you make it your own. And I've seen with illusions, that's very difficult to do because
it's the hardest to do with illusions.
But your sword basket routine is hilarious with the sword getting pushed out and the spinning around. And you did the same thing. You do an illusion that I do with Puck, and we'll talk about Puck later on, the sawing in half. And you do the whole balloon presentation. Yeah. And when I saw that, I was like, my God, that is just the best presentation of that.
Oh, with the balloon? Yeah.
It's just brilliant. Yeah. So for those people that are wanting to get into illusions, or maybe they're starting with an illusion act, what advice would you give somebody to make an illusion your own, as opposed to put a girl in a box, put a sword through, take the girl out, move on?
Yeah. That's the hardest thing to do. Illusion acts a lot of them are like cover bands, It's great. You got all the flash, they sound great, they look great. Everything's there that's supposed to be there, but there's no heart in it. There's no soul in it because they didn't write the music, So I think that's what Max Maven said that the hardest form of magic to perform. I think I just heard this recently on a podcast. The hardest form of magic to do and do well is grand stage illusions, right? Because it is that everything comes in the box, and all you have to do is push the right button or turn the right thing or close the right trap door, and it works. It's a little bit easier even than stand-up magic, because stand-up you do have to have some dexterity, but the thing to stand out in stage illusions, and they're going to come back. They're going to cycle back into fashion. Just as they go out, they go back in, and that's going to be a new thing. But somebody's going to reinvent it in some interesting way. But yeah, to transcend the prop is the whole key to doing stage magic. You have to make it look like you are the one making the magic happen, right? So you have to be the one who is in control and bigger than the prop. You have to be bigger than the prop. And then as far as adding creativity to it, the sword basket routine was actually sort of a handed down thing that I got the basic nuts and bolts of that from Denny Haney, who got the basic pieces and nuts and bolts less put together from George Schindler, right? Who got the basic nuts and bolts of that handed down from Virgil and Julie. So it started out as a quick bit in Virgil and Julie's act, then George Schindler laid something on top of it, then Denny laid something on top of it and honed it, gave it to me. I laid more stuff on top of it and honed it and turned it into what you saw on Cabaret du Monde or wherever that sword basket is. But that was a progression, that sword basket routine, taking an existing thing. I could have done it exactly like Denny, beat for beat, move for move, but I said I can't. I need to add something else to it to make it mine. Same thing with the balloon trick. I had seen Puck and I saw, and Puck and I are very good collaborators. If you can find someone that you can bounce ideas off of and they send them back to you, but they're not afraid to go, dude, that sucks. That's just a terrible idea. If you can find somebody like that you can trust, who won't, give you a bunch of baloney, that's very valuable in helping to come up with routines, because you can't come up with everything up yourself. You can't. So find a friend. A lot of my best ideas came from something Bob Kohler might have said, or something that Denny might have said, or something that someone might have said that'll spark something in you. So that collaboration and talking magic and that thing you get when you're if you've ever hung out in a real magic shop, if you've ever done that, like a real magic shop, and you've hung out all day for 9 hours, and everybody's coming and going, and you meet strange people and weird people and famous people, that experience of being in that place around the fire pit, so to speak, is where you get your best ideas. That interaction between other people. Now, I'm talking not about social interaction in person, not social interaction across here. This is great, but there's nothing that beats that in-person experience to help give you ideas. So that idea was sparked by sitting at Denny's shop, talking to Puck, going, we love that trick. It's a great idea. Let's use it for our show, but how can we make it different? And I said, well, what if it's like a Weird Al Yankovic's video, like a surgeon, right? Like a surgeon cut for the very first, and we like take weird stuff out of myself. And Puck's like, that's the dumbest shit I ever heard. But I like the idea of pulling something out. That's great. Well, what can we pull out? And then it just kind of snowballed from there and turned into what that was.
Amazing. Amazing. Now, obviously, taking aside illusions, you have, and we'll talk about the stuff that you've created later on, but you've published a whole bunch of DVDs on stand-up magic.
Yeah.
And I've actually said on this channel, I've said on this channel for a long time, with the pandemic, when everything's over, I think there's going to be more opportunities for stage magicians than there are close-up for a while, because just the nature of close-up magic.
That makes sense, logical sense, yeah.
So my question is, what advice, based on all these, first of all, the big piece of advice is buy your DVD set.
Right, yeah. Buy it now.
Buy it now. Yeah. But outside of that, what advice would you give somebody? They're a close-up magician, they're semi-professional, they're professional, they want to carry on working, they want to put a stage act together. What advice would you give somebody to go? Because I speak to a lot of close-up magicians and they're scared to go on stage.
Right.
They go, there's a big difference between performing to 2 or 3 people, mix and mingle, and walking out on stage in front of a few hundred people. Yeah. So
when you walk out on stage in front of a bunch of people, I completely understand that. You almost feel naked. If going from close-up to stand-up, there's a big gap, and it's almost like a feeling of being naked. There's so much room now between you and the audience. It's like, I can't hide anywhere. I can't hide my shitty Elmsley count under a wrist turn. I don't have control, right? I'm not in this is not my area. Now it's all out here and all the eyes are on me. So that's something that you've got to be aware of, that in order to transition to doing stand-up magic, your technique really has to be better than it is if you were doing close-up, because they can see everything. It's not like a camera is, we have that selective focus, right? The neuroscientists have all studied. We can only see and concentrate on this little window, right? It's about the size of a $50, about a foot in front of your face. That's where all of our real concentration happens. Well, in close-up, you can control that, and we know how to control that, right? That's why neuroscientists studied close-up magicians. But that circle widens up quite considerably when you're standing on a stage in front of people, right? So now everything in this window has to be, copacetic. So if you're doing a top change to change one envelope for another envelope, it better be clean, because if something looks dirty about it, they're going to bust you on it. So the thing to do when you're making that transition is choose one piece of material that you can execute the sleights flawlessly, like you can do it in your sleep, right? And then put that in front of an audience at an open mic night, or put that in front of an audience with your buddies. Say, hey, I know you're doing a show downtown. Can I open for you and do 5 minutes? I just want to do this one thing, and then so ease into it that way. Pick one trick that that you have every sleight executed, you could do in your sleep with your eyes closed, and then start that way. Second thing I would say is, if you do a trick like ring flight, Al Karan's flying ring, right? One of the greatest concepts, because it gets rid of the thing and it produces a thing, and it's great. Ring flight works terrific in a close-up situation, but I do it on stage. And the way that I do it on stage is I basically, instead of framing everything at my waist, I just bring everything up here to my face. So now, when I vanish the ring, I take the ring and I will show it to someone in the front row. I'll bring it back here and pretend to take it. It goes away, and I do the vanish up here now, right? There's nothing in my hand, but I'm framing everything right here, so everybody's looking at me. And in the end, same thing with I don't have it here in front of me, but same thing with the reveal. I unzip the key case in front of my face. I put it in here, and I hang it so you can see that the ring is hanging from the key case. The key case is free and swinging. It's attached. You're telegraphing that to the audience that it's really attached. And then you bring the person a little closer, and you very, very clearly and plainly unhook the ring and hand it back. And so by framing a close-up trick that you already do in a different way, a little bit bigger, something you're already comfortable with, can help you transition to the stage like that.
That's great advice. Now, we're going to talk about the stuff that you've created a little bit later on, but what advice would you give on trick selection? Because a lot of people, they struggle when they go on stage to make routines their own. Now, one thing that you've done all the way through your career is you've taken a prop that everybody uses, or a concept that everyone uses, you turned it on your head. Look at Superfly. Everyone does cards across. You take it to the next level by adding a very simple prop. Look at the American sticks. I laugh my ass off when you dip it. Oh my God. But you've done it over and over again. I mean,
that's cross-pollination. It's like, you ever see that bee movie with Jerry Seinfeld, Bee Movie, right? Or the bees pollinating stuff. Well, that's just it. You can, and Jeff McBride had a really good exercise on this that I think I mentioned in my stand-up DVDs, where you can make two lists side by side. You can make a list of effects and a list of jokes, or you can make a list of effects and a list of premises. And you can just willy-nilly draw lines connecting each one, make X's on the page and see what line from here contacts what item from here. And then you can go, well, how can I use Al Baker's Cake in the Hat with the Bill in Lemon, so how can I connect these two tricks? And then that starts your brain thinking. Maybe that'll make some strange connection that'll create a piece of magic. Maybe it'll create a turd in a shoebox, or maybe it'll create something great. You never know. But without being willing to try to at least put these different things together in different ways, we won't come up with any new magic. So that's one really good exercise. Come up with a list of effects and a list of different premises or tricks or ideas or jokes or gags or whatever you want to try to connect. It could even be objects. It can be a carrot, a broccoli, a lemon. It could be anything, any two lists, and try to connect them. You could do the same thing with slips of paper in a hat. You make a slip of paper and you fill up a hat with slips of paper with objects and a slip of paper with effects, or with like levitation, disappearing, transpositions, the 7 or 8 effects, and then the levitating lemon. Well, what does that mean? And now you start thinking in a whole different direction than you would normally think as a magician.
That's amazing advice. And one other thing that you do, and you've literally, and I mean literally, written the book on this, is your use of music, musicality.
Oh yeah.
And I'm not just talking about with illusions. You see a lot of stand-up performers, they go out, they talk for 45 minutes and they leave. But there's so much music used during your show, and it's always very eclectic. Like, I remember, again, your Penguin Christmas, one of them, doing your salt pour. And
Oh yeah.
and I was bought into it just by the music immediately
Oh,
before you.
Richard Cheese. I think I used Richard Cheese for that. Yeah, yeah.
Mm, so
Pour
good.
some sugar. His parody version of "Pour Some Sugar on Me." Yeah,
Mm,
yeah, yeah.
so good.
I love weird. Like I mentioned, Weird Al Yankovic. I love Richard Cheese. There's a band from I think they're from France called the Lost Fingers. They take 1980s songs and make them loungy. You know, there's Scott Bradley's what is it jukebox. They do the same kind of thing. Peachtree Orchestra took "Staying Alive" and set it to 1920s ragtime music. You know, well, you can tell by the way I use my walk. I'm a woman's man. No time for talk. Ding, 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 ding. You know, and it's this weird things that's one of the things that led me to that sugar thing was Richard Cheese's song "Pour Some Sugar on Me." I'm like, wow, that's great. We can use that for any kind of amount of tricks with sugar. Same thing. I was thinking recently about that coffee vase trick, and the where you would fill like bran or rice or something in a coffee vase, and I was thinking of doing oats, like filling it with oat bran or oats, and you playing a Hall and Oates song, right? So, private eyes are watching you, or something, or she's a man eater, and having like a puppet like eat the oats, and it goes from this bran vase over here. So it was just an idea that I was playing around with the other day, trying to recreate some of those old things that you see in Professor Hoffman, these weird tin things or brass things. What can that be today, or what could that be used today? Well, that thing kind of looks like a fancy coffee espresso press, right? So maybe you could change oats into coffee beans or something like that. There's a million possibilities, and that's why reading reading books and stuff like that is important too. They spark ideas as well. So yeah.
So when you're searching for a piece of music, is it literally just a case of listening, and writing something down when you like the sound of it?
Yeah, when I like the sound of it, I'll make a note, right on my phone. I'll say, what was the most recent one I heard? I think it was Peachtree. I think it was that Peachtree. No, it was Peachtree Orchestra's version of Aha's "Take on Me, Take on Me," from the '80s. It's a ragtime version of that. The other thing I thought recently was using the remix of Beyonce's "Crazy in Love" from The Great Gatsby to use with the Wakeling sawing. Right? So you talk about the 20s, you talk about "Crazy in Love." I'm doing it with my wife. There's got to be a combination. Maybe she can dress Great Gatsby, and we can pull some inspiration from Great Gatsby to use for the sawing in half, since that was the contemporary with when Selbit first created it. So that was something I was thinking about recently. But anytime you hear a song and you like it, just make a note of it somewhere on your phone or in a little notebook, and then every time you're looking for a piece of music for a trick, just kind of scan that list and see if anything just happens to match up. It's the same as the other process with making those lists. Inspiration for music can hit you anytime. You're driving in the car, you're sitting in a movie, you're walking out of a movie theater, and you hear the ending credits. As I was leaving the movie The Professional with Gary Oldman, I heard that Sting song. I'm like, that's going in the show somewhere. He deals the cards as a meditation. I mean, Farquhar's used it, Cyril's used it, a bunch of people have used it, but that leapt right off the screen into my ear hole, and I immediately started using that for McDonald's Aces when I did that years ago when that movie first came out. So that inspiration typically will hit you like either a lightning bolt, or it'll be a slow burn. You'll go, I really like that song. Wonder what I can use it for. And then later on, a couple months down the road, you're looking for a piece of music for a trick, consult that list, and maybe you'll make a connection.
Perfect. That's great advice. Now, when I found out I was interviewing you, I did ask a lot of people if they had any questions they wanted me to ask.
Mm-hmm.
And one more question that came up over and over again on the subject of stand-up magic,
Mm-hmm.
which is a very open-ended question, so I apologize for this.
Sure.
How do you be funny? I mean, you are a very funny guy. You're very funny. Anybody who's seen you knows that. Your act is funny, but you're just a funny guy anyway. Is there a secret to being able to be? Because we've all seen those comedy magicians that shouldn't be comedy magicians because they're just
Mm-hmm.
naturally not funny.
Yeah.
Is there a secret to it? Is there a secret sauce, or is it literally just a case of dying on your ass over and over again?
Well, yeah, that's part of it, and that's great. I very much appreciate that compliment. But you know what's a little greater? This is, hey, look at that. That's a little greater. Thank you. Thank you. All right, that's my sense of humor, right? That's where my level is. It's this kind of thing. That's my sense of humor. Hey, oh, it's Chicken Bob. You get dressed. You're naked. All right. You know why the chicken crossed the road? To get to the other side, right? Do you know why Adele crossed the road? To say hello from the other side. Thank you. All right, there you go. So anyway, that's what goes on inside my brain as far as comedy goes. How to be funny? You can't. I don't think you can learn to be funny in the respect of like, I'm going to study now how to be funny, and I'm going to tell a joke and it will be funny. But if you find you have friends, right? Everybody's got friends, and they like you, right? There's got to be some kind of reason they like you, right? Or maybe you're funny around them. So find out what that is. Why do your friends like you? What makes you likable and fun to your friends, right? Ask them, right? They will tell you because they're your friends. And whatever answer you get back, that's probably where your humor will lie, in that area, right? So find out why friends like you. Find out why people like to hang around you, and then zero in on that, and that will help you be funny. And if you don't have any friends, or if they tell you they don't like you, well, then you become a mentalist.
Wonderful advice.
And that's also humor too, right? Humor takes you down the garden path, and then boom, all of a sudden you break the assumption. Best advice I can give you is find a lecture by Jeff Hobson and Michael Goudeau on comedy. And Goudeau talks about comedy is basically breaking assumptions, right? You set up this assumption, and then you break it. And he says that Michael Goudeau, smart, brilliant guy, he said that laughter is the sound of assumptions breaking. So that's the best advice I ever heard on how to be funny.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant. Now, let's go back to your career. So you've been given you've been in Vegas for years. You've been headlining various different shows of your own. You've been standing in for other entertainers. You are not a jobbing magician anymore. You're doing really well. You are, by any definition, successful. What made you then decide to go, you know what? I'm going to go and do AGT. Let's be honest, right? That's a risk.
Yeah.
Because if it pays off, brilliant. But if it doesn't pay off, it's a risk. What made you decide you're at this level? I'm going to go and do that.
Well, you sound like my wife. She's like, why the hell would you want to go do AGT? What's wrong with you? You could fall and crash and burn and land on your face. Well, yeah, that's all true, and that's all true. And I wanted to do it because it was basically the only game in town on television at the time. It was the only way to reach 1 million people and kind of have them see what you're about, what you do. The odds were astronomical of getting in, and I'm, again, lucky as that can be that they picked me. But I wanted to do it because that was the only thing to do if you wanted to be on television at the time in the early 2000 or mid 2000s, whatever it was, 2010, 11, whenever I was on there. And I realized it was going to be a risk, but I chose something that hadn't been done before on there, because I know that's all we're looking for, the next big thing, something that never was seen. So I picked, Henning's water levitation to do. I had just been doing it on a cruise ship. The show there was over, it was ending. I had it came off the ship, it came to my house. I'm like, I'm gonna send this to AGT, let's try it. And they had never seen it, they liked it. And then I realized that once I was there, my instincts were right. It's that same story about the likability thing, right? It's like they had people who would go and audition for AGT, and again, they would demand this: I need the light exactly this way, and the camera has to be exactly this way, and you can't shoot me from this angle. I just went in there with the idea of, hey, this is my trick. You guys are here to make me look good. What do you want me to do, right? What do you want me to do? And they loved that, because they're not used to people realizing that it's their show, it's their thing, it's a story, they're making it, it's their, it's not the Scott Alexander presents AGT. It's AGT is giving Scott Alexander a shot. So again, I was accommodating, I was likable, I was friendly, I wasn't a pain in the butt, and they let me pass through 3 of the rounds before I, got kicked off.
Yeah, you did a great job on that. You did a great job.
Yeah. So, and I just wanted to get on one, just get some TV footage. But those extra 2 were like just a bonus, a cherry on top of that. So now I can say, yeah, I've been seen by 11 million, however many million people watch the thing, and it's a nice feather in the cap, and boom. And now you go on to the next thing. I told my wife, I said, what do you think about maybe like going back and doing AGT again? What do you think? She's like, absolutely not. I forbid it. That you got out unscathed. You're not going back on again. So there you go. So yeah, I'll probably take that advice.
Well, from there, obviously, you touched on the fact that you've got this partnership with Puck, and you guys work an awful lot together, as well as you on your own. You work with Puck as well.
Yeah.
I've had a few questions on the channel in the past about how does somebody form a 2-person show?
Yeah. There really weren't a lot around. I mean, really, you could I can only think of before 1990, maybe there was Siegfried and Roy, Penn and Teller. That was it. Yeah. And then in the late 90s, early 2000s, Puck and I had met and we were buddies. We hit it off. Denny was both of our teachers. I taught him part of the Denny and Lee show. When I handed it over to him, he took over as Denny's assistant. We just hit it off. And the first thing I think we actually put out together was that drink in the shoe thing. But we had talked about sitting around the magic shop. Wouldn't it be great if a black magician and a white magician teamed up and could create like this show about, racial, social issues and stuff like that? So we were sitting around the shop and we came up with a way of doing Cuba Libre with the N word, right? Spelling it out, right? It says N blank WORD, 6 blocks, and how we try to keep it going away, but yet it keeps coming back, right? We try to make it go away and it keeps coming back. That was one of the first things we actually made together as a theatrical piece. And then at the end, instead of it saying the N word, when you lift the tube off, it says racism. So it says we need to end this racism, and we both fist bump the thing and racism collapses. The blocks fall apart. Right? So that was like the first, our little stroke of artistic Penn and Teller, talk about the flag, presentations we came up with. And since then, we've written a whole bunch more, and we do them from time to time. It's hard because he lives in Florida and I live in Pennsylvania. So we're, 2-hour flight apart. But we still talk every couple of days, and we're still working on ideas. And we'll continue to work because we're just, a buddy of mine is opening a magic venue in Baltimore, and he wants to have Puck and I come in and do our shows, and we're going to be bringing other magicians in to do the shows. So there will be more Scott and Puck collaborations at the Magic Mania Theater, which will be opening in Baltimore. Puck and I are doing our first show there for hopefully, if everybody decides to come after they take off their masks or get their vaccinations or whatever happens, will be in April sometime that'll start.
URL down at the bottom of the screen for that. And in the description. That's great. I had on my list of questions to ask you, would you consider, I think you've answered it, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Would you consider doing AGT again with Puck?
Puck wants to do it because he wants to do some of this, socially conscious stuff we're doing, but I don't know if they're ready for that yet. I think it's still dog and pony, right? I think it's still, I don't think they're. We tried to do that piece at the Magic Castle, and even though it was the Academy of Magical Arts, they were like, great message, but don't do that here. Right?
Fair enough.
So yeah, it's touchy, and a lot of the stuff Puck and I have are like that. It's like, hey, look at this elephant. It's in the room, right? Can we talk about it? So yeah, but we'll probably not AGT again. I don't know. Maybe unless it starts coming around and it's a little more accepting. But certain things like the comedians like Bill Hicks, who would work comedy clubs or smaller venues and do really socially conscious pushing things. When those venues pop up, we jump at the chance to do them because it's after all, this is supposed to be an art form, right? We're supposed to be saying something, giving a point of view. That's probably one of the best ways to do it. And it's also just light entertainment as well. There's nothing wrong with that. You can go out there and do card and balloon and be perfectly happy and make people smile and forget about the pandemic or forget about their bills, or forget about that their wife is nagging them to death. That's fine too. But if you can actually say something with what you do too, speaks to you, that speaks to people of what you think of as a human being, well, then you're communicating something extra, and that's next level. That's Delgadio level, right? So yeah.
Well, on the subject of a two-person show, I was speaking to your friend Dan the other day, and I said to him, and I'll say the same thing to you, the best thing that Penguin has ever done are the Christmas specials that you and Dan did together.
Yeah, thank you.
Hilarious.
Dan is a genius, and Dan and I are opposite ends of the spectrum as far as, again, creativity, as far as like energy. Dan is very meticulous, and I'm kind of all over the place. I'm the flamboyant wizard, and Dan is the studied wizard. He's the Snape, all right, and I'm more crazy Dumbledore. But yeah, Dan is great, and you find somebody who complements you, right? It's that thing, opposites attract, right? So he has that. Puck is the same way as Dan. I don't think Dan and Puck could work together because they're too much alike, but Puck and I, we work great too. So find someone, if you want to create a duo act, find someone who fills in all of your flaws. If you're doing your house in drywall, right, and you got a little drywall spackle and you see the holes, find that person who's going to fill in those holes, for you, right? What are you missing? What can they bring to the table? And that's where good partnerships are formed, I think.
Outside of the Penguin lives, have you ever worked with Dan before? Because the chemistry you two had with each other.
Dan and I worked together on the Majoke magazine, that parody magazine that came out back in '98 about that was like sort of like Weenie, but a lot more brutally honest. It was like if instead of Mike Caveney and Harry Anderson and those folks writing Weenie, Guy Jarrett wrote Weenie. That's really what it was like, because Guy Jarrett wasn't afraid to tell magicians, hey, look, you're being a stuffed shirt, dude, relax. So that's kind of what that was about. But yeah, Dan and I collaborated on the magazine. It was very well received by the people with shall we say healthy egos. The people with very shall we say overly active egos were not so pleased with it, but that's the way it is. It's like Harry Anderson. I'll go back to Harry Anderson. If you can't laugh at yourself, then you sure ain't seen what you look like sleeping. Right? So there you go.
Love it. And before I move on from Dan, one other question. Yep. Would you and him ever do another live together? Because we missed it last year. Christmas wasn't the same.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people thought the same thing. Would you ever team up again and do another one?
Yeah, I would. It wasn't really my decision. It was just kind of like every year, since the year one, Dan and I first decided to do it, I would call Penguin around, maybe August and go, hey, do you want to do another one of those things? And they would go, yeah, okay, let's do it. And then Dan and I would start working. And then this year, the year before last, I called him and said, hey, you want to do the Penguin? You want to do another thing? And they're like, nah, I think we'll pass. I think we're good. So it was really Penguin's decision to not do it. I would be more than willing to do it because it's
we need to campaign Penguin then. Fair enough.
Yeah, really. It's the guy who runs Penguin. Go climb up his flagpole and complain.
Let's talk about creativity in terms of the products you've brought out. And I want to ask you a question, first of all. I've followed your career right from the very beginning. I'm thinking that the first DVD or the first anything you ever brought out was the midnight show and the 10 o'clock show with Kohler.
That is correct.
Yeah, okay.
That is correct.
So here's a question. When you brought those out, you were
Holy
doing...
mackerel. No. There. Holy mackerel. Look, there it is. Oh my goodness. All right. I'm sitting actually where I do my virtual shows, so I got all my toys rigged up to do
right.
What? Oh my god. Okay. All right.
Oh, right. Yes. Where was I? I can't even remember. Right. Yeah.
I don't remember.
You're at the top of your game. You're at the top of your game when you release those DVDs. It's not like Bob Kohler went, oh, here's a guy that's doing nothing. He's a nobody. Bob Kohler doesn't bring out much, and when he does, it's top quality stuff. And yeah. I still say the 10 o'clock show and the midnight show, they were groundbreaking at the time, like absolutely groundbreaking. My first question is, Why? Why did you start creating magic? Because you could tell that the material you were presenting on there was that was your bread and butter material. And there you are, just like giving it away on 2 DVDs.
The real reason why is because Bob Kohler asked me to. I was at that time. At that time, I was working at Caesars. I was running the Denny and Lee Magic Studio Las Vegas branch. I had opened that up and was running that for Denny. And Bob came to see me at Caesars, and I'd known Bob from back when I was in Baltimore. I worked at a magic shop in Baltimore while I was going to college as part of the job. I would do shows out of that magic shop too for birthday parties and stuff. So I worked at the magic shop, met Bob there near DC, Washington DC, and happened to reconnect with Bob in Las Vegas. And Bob saw my show at Caesars and he was like, "Oh my gosh!" He's like, "Why? I put out stuff with Daryl. I put out stuff with Troy Hoosier. Says, can we put some of your material on DVD?" And I was like, "Well, like what?" And then so I just showed him a bunch of stuff, and he was like, "Okay, that one, let's do that one." So really, those 2 DVDs were all mined from my material, massaged by Bob Kohler, and turned into those 2 DVDs. And that was, I had no intention of doing it. If it wasn't for Bob Kohler, I wouldn't be releasing any magic at all. Zero.
The material on there was phenomenal. Like, I was talking on the channel just the other day that the coin thing with the cup and the appearance of the coffee with the spoon. And...
Oh, yeah, all that stuff. Yeah, and that was stuff that I was doing back then all the time. So, I was up on it and good at doing it. The Dean's Box had just come out, and I had just come up with a bunch of cool stuff, and I tried it out in the Secret Pagoda Theater, and it killed, and Bob was like, "That's going in, that's great." In fact, I'm about to pick that up again, the Dean's Box, because I got some more ideas for it that didn't even make it on there, that were new, right? So they weren't on the DVD. New stuff that was like, I got a new idea. So I want to drag the Dean's Box out again and play with it too, because I still think there's more to do with that.
Oh, there's a lot. Absolutely. Yep. And then off the back of those DVDs, you then brought out more stuff with Bob, really high-end stuff from memory, Final Answer, Velocity, Needle, that sort of stuff.
Yeah, Velocity was something that I had performed. I mentioned I was driving around with my wife in the college shows in the early to mid 90s. And that was my closer, was the paintball bullet catch. I'd done that as the closer. And at the time I was using a laser sight on top of the paintball gun. It really wasn't a laser sight because they were super expensive then. It was actually this giant laser pointer that it was like that big, and it was hexagonal, and I electrical taped the switch down that you push and velcroed it to the top of the gun. Right? That's how, and this laser, even though this laser, now something cost you like $3, was like $150 back then for just this crappy laser that just made a one red beam. So I was doing that back then as my, back in and that was 1989, I think, when I first did the paintball bullet catch. But yeah, and I showed that to Bob, and it fooled the heck out of Bob. And he's like, I got nothing. I don't know how you did that. I don't know. I didn't see the switch. I didn't see the load. I didn't see anything. I don't know what you just did there. He's like, that's like a rattlesnake bite. And then I explained the method to him. And he's like, "Oh my God, we've got to put this out. Do you know how many college entertainers would kill to have a closer like this?" I was like, "Tell me, I've been doing it." So
even now, it's a closer in my show. I absolutely love this.
Thanks. A lot of people use it. Because, for the same reason I came up with it, is because I didn't want to hurt myself and mess around with a real gun because they scare the crap out of me. But I can look cool with a paintball gun, and I'm not going to kill myself, right? So again, same thing with the nail, same thing with the rubber bottle, same thing with all that stuff. I wanted to be able to have that confidence to perform it and not worry about, anything else.
Now, you've continued to release products, and obviously, you still do stuff with Bob,
Yeah.
but you also have your own online shop. You have Alexander's.
Yeah, Bob and I have a list of a half a dozen things that we just haven't gotten around to because there's this global pandemic thing. I don't know, So Bob and I, something else will come out from me and Bob, I'm sure, pretty soon down the road.
Well, my question is, a lot of the material that you bring out is very expensive. Mm-hmm. Now, I've had people in the channel that have contacted me and said, you know, don't you think magic is too overpriced? And I've said, well, yeah, if you're bringing out a little gimmick with no instructions and no routine or anything like that. But when the reason I'm willing to spend a lot of money on anything you bring out, and you know I've pretty much bought everything in your shop and then some, is because I know that when I buy a Scott Alexander product, it's going to have a completely full-formed routine. It's going to have been tried out in the real world a million times. I'm not going to have to think about anything. I know that I can eventually put my own stamp on it, but it's going to be literally, this is what you do, and it's going to play to a massive audience, and it's going to be absolutely brilliant. What do you think about, you know, the state of the magic community is at the moment in terms of tricks that are coming out? Because a lot of them are.
I think 80% of what's coming out is unnecessary, completely unnecessary, and it really is just it's stoked by the Persian Bazaar magic piranha feeding frenzy of what's the next thing I should buy. You know, your phone goes ding and it tells you what to buy. Oh, there's the latest thing that just came out. I got to go buy that. And you go buy it and you get it and it sucks. It's the same thing like when I was 14 years old reading the Abbott's catalog and I go, oh my God, I got to have that. And I send in my check or money order and it sounds really, really good in the description and you get it. And it's a freaking paper clip and a ping pong ball on a wire, right? That's it, right? The levitating sphere, whatever we called it in the penguin thing. Same thing now. People go, how can I put together this rubber band and this flap card and suck $20 out of 1,000 magicians, right?
Yeah.
And that's really, I hate to say that, but that's kind of what it is, right?
Yeah.
And you've got distributors who'll buy anything. Yeah, good, give me those. I can sell 30 of those. So it's that mentality. People are not approaching inventing magic for the love of the magic. They're doing it for the love of money, right? Because they know they can hawk it off on somebody when it's not a fully thought out idea. Some things I guarantee you were thought of on Thursday, filmed on Friday, packaged on Saturday, and sold to Murphy's on Monday. I guarantee it. That's happened, right? That's not what I'm into. I want to make sure that I'm whatever I do, it really works. I've really thought about it, and I've really performed it. It's not a pipe dream, and I want to give people the things that I would say with it, the things that I would use with it, the 30 years I've been doing this, the experience that comes with it, everything already thought of. So then they can take this thing and take the best of what they have here, add a little bit of their self to it, and then give it to an audience. And that's why it's so expensive, because of all of that, right? You buy the cow when you give away the milk for free or whatever. I worked really hard to come up with all this stuff, you know? And like I said, I didn't just come up with it on Thursday. I've been working on it for 6 months, tried it for another 6, came back to the drawing board, fixed this, you know? So it's just everything that goes into it. You're not buying a paper clip and a rubber band. You're buying a piece of my brain and a piece of the brains that everyone else in the past put into my brain, right? So you're getting a piece of Al Baker, you're getting a piece of Vernon, you're getting a piece of Denny Haney, you're getting a piece of Norm Nielsen. It's all of that, and that's all of that goes into it. It's not just for profit. It's real. It's a real creation. So
it really is.
That's the best I can explain it.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, and I do agree there's a problem in the industry, and I think that you are one of the good guys. You are the one that I know that I can just see a Scott Alexander product, and I don't even need to look at a trailer. I just know that if I hit buy, it's going to be something that I'm ultimately going to use.
And these magic trailers, oh my God. I don't need to see a feature film to buy a magic trick. I just need to see the thing work. Can I just see it work for real? I think you've tackled a lot of those issues, right? Just show me the thing working. I probably know what it does already. I don't need to see trees and books and oceans and smoke. Just show me the thing working, you know? But I sound like the get off of my lawn, the old guy. But it's the same thing from back in the day. The catalog descriptions, no skill required, this, that, the other, does this, does that. Yeah, they use deceptive words in the advertising, but now the deception in the advertising of the trick is way more deceptive than the trick itself.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah. Totally agree. So out of everything you've ever released, what is your favorite product? Because you've brought so much out.
My favorite?
Your favorite thing that you've ever created? That you've got available that you've released.
I would have to say the one that's really nearest and dearest that I probably worked the hardest on is the missing link, is the linking finger ring routine.
Yeah.
And that, not only the thinking behind the routine and the moves, but the actual design of the ring itself. Because it's not like any other, I mean, it's exactly like every other Himba ring, yet it's not, in these subtle ways that make it, you know, better. And the routine, the speed link routine that I taught on Penguin, and then the one that comes with the actual missing link, the extended routine with the visual linking and unlinking stuff, to me, I saw great people do the Himba rings. I saw Kreskin do it. I watched Billy McComb do it. I watched Nick Lewin do it. I watched Bruce Servan do it. The list goes on and on. Tim Conover, Bob Kohler. I saw a lot of people do it, but most of them, when they did it, it looked like this, right? Okay, and they're walking around the audience doing this. Well, what are you doing? Why are you doing that? If you were going to link rings together, wouldn't you just pick one up and touch it to another one, and it's linked together, and then you come and look at it, and you come and look at it? That's the way it should look. So the missing link, I think, is probably the thing I'm the proudest of, that involves a gimmick and sleight of hand and a different way to look at the sleight of hand to make it work. So I think the missing link, I would have to say, is probably the thing I'm proudest of.
I do think it's amazing. My favorite routine that you've ever marketed, in my opinion, is one that you did with Puck together, which is Wishes, which is what I use to close my family show. And
oh, great. Yeah.
And you know, I see a lot of people on the forum when it was released.
Oh my God, it's $800 for bubbles. Yeah.
for a bubble thing. And I'm like, I absolutely I can't ever take that out of my family show, because it's just, it's like doing Snowstorm, but better. And it brings the house down.
Yeah, Puck closes every show with it. He won't close his show without it. And again, that was inspired by reading, I think it was Carol Fox who had something with a bubble, or it might have been the Sphinx magazine. There was a guy who would produce the bubble out of the air, and at the same time, open on the thing, I was reading about Carol Fox's take on The Miser's Dream. And those two books, right, just happened to be laying next to each other as I was playing with the bubbles, and I thought, well, what if you take this bubble and throw it in the bucket? Oh, look, I can blow a bubble and throw it in the bucket. And then it became, oh, crap. Now how am I going to show they all disappear and then turn it over and immediately bubbles start flying? That became the epic journey from hell in terms of trying to send things back and forth to China ultimately and get these pieces back, because the thing that we wanted was this proprietary invention that someone created in China of a toy company where you could do this upside down bit. Well, luckily, someone else for another toy company had invented this similar idea, and then we tweaked it a little bit, and now it's made over here in the US. We don't have to send stuff over there back and forth. So this epic journey to get this little simple stupid bubble trick working, and that's why that thing is $800, because of all that went in it. But not only that, I tell you, that thing, I watch Puck do it, and every time I know what's coming, but every time when the guy grabs it and throws it in, he goes, oh, a little less macho, a little more imagination. That just, hits him right there, and then all the bubbles coming out, and the memories that it churns up from childhood with the bubbles and the thing. It's just, and then the scripting that we added to it, make it that bubbles equal wishes, and the further and the higher they fly, the better chance they have of coming true. All of that stuff is what you're buying. You're not just buying a bubble hitting the bottom of a bucket or a machine that blows bubbles. You're buying the whole entire thing, the entire creative process.
Exactly. And I think people need to invest in their act. It's nice having something that very few people are going to do, or very few.
And that's another thing. It's like the price of admission. It's like if you want to roll in the big pond with the big fish, you got to spend the big bucks. And that's not to say that you can't do if you don't have the big bucks. And I remember being a kid wanting to do big illusions and stuff, like, oh, one day I'm going to have this, and one day I'm going to have that. In whatever it was, 1980, when I'm 16, 17, 18 years old, and Copperfield does the Blaney ladder levitation, right? I'm like, one day I'm going to have that. I didn't go and ask, mom or dad to, foot the bill for a Blaney ladder levitation. I didn't buy one till I was 40. I could afford it, So, you gotta pay the price sometimes. It's just, these people think that secrets should just fall out of the sky like manna from heaven, and they're entitled to all these secrets. Well, you're not. You're not, because you didn't put the time in to learn them. And that's what frustrates me, and frustrated Denny too with kids. I can't read books. I can't learn. I'm a visual learner. I have to watch a DVD. Well, then you're not using your own imagination, right? Pick up a magic book. Try at least to read something. Maybe it'll create that thing that you're missing in your act, right? So, anyway, I'll get off the soapbox.
No, I totally agree with you, 100%. Let me ask you one question. For anybody who's not bought a Scott Alexander product before, and they're a professional magician, but they've never bought a Scott Alexander product before, at the bottom of the screen, we've got your magic shop URL.
Oh, shameless plug. Shameless plug.
Right there. Happens right now. What would you suggest is the best thing to go for? Would it be the standing up DVD set, or would it be?
Yeah, if they really want to get into doing magic, transitioning especially from close up to stand up, buy that DVD set. You will. My teacher, who passed away recently, was 2 years ago, was Denny Haney, and Denny was like Yoda to me, right? He had been there, done that. Same as got the T-shirt. And the best compliment he ever gave me was, this DVD set belongs right here next to Fitzke and Tarbell. It belongs right in between there because you're hitting everything they said. And they were based on what I learned from Denny, basically. Those things are what was in Denny's lecture notes, what he had passed on to me. And then I took them and I said, I know there are people who don't want to read. I know there are these people. So maybe I can put it all in a visual medium so these visual learners can absorb it, and then maybe that'll inspire them to go, hey, I really like that idea. I'm going to go check out Tarbell Volume 6 and see where that idea came from, And not only that, but it just tells you how to take the magic that you already do and make it play in this window that I talked about before, make it play here instead of, down here.
Absolutely. And as you've mentioned, Denny Haney, obviously, one of the new products that you've just brought out is the book, which has been, I know, a labor of love.
Oh, absolutely.
For a very long time. Would you mind sharing a little bit about that process and talking to us a little bit about the book and the contents? Would that be all right?
Yeah, absolutely. That's probably, as far as writings, that's the thing I'm proudest of that I've written, because back in, and it all came about back in 2011, Mike Close said, Denny, just kind of smoking a lot, not taking care of himself, eating McDonald's every day for dinner. He's not going to be around a whole lot longer. But the material that he has, his contribution to magic, his thoughts, his philosophy, his thinking, that should be all chronicled somehow. And he asked me to write a series of articles for the MUM magazine based on Denny's material. And then Mike Close said, and if you decide to do this, at the end, you'll have the start of a book. And I was like, well, yeah, you're kind of right. So I asked Denny, and he said yes. And Denny had actually already started a book back in 1992. Started writing it. And there's this lecture on my site. I put this lecture. It's called 12 Lessons on Magic. And it's Denny talking. And right in the beginning of the lecture, he goes, yeah, I've got this book. It's coming out in about 5 years from now. And that was 1992. Well, it never made it. It made it as far as me, but it never made it to market. So over that course of writing those articles for Denny about MUM, I collected about 40 hours of audio and video interviews with Denny, basically saying, what else do you want in the book, Denny? What do you want to talk about? And he'd go, well, I think the sub-trunk. I think we need to talk about it because most people are doing the sub-trunk all wrong. I remember when Al Delage and Margaret used to do this, and then all this knowledge would start flowing out of him from 450 years of being in the business, things that he heard. Oh, I remember this came from, I didn't know Richard Ross never really performed his beautiful 3-ring routine for lay people. That was just for magicians, right? Richard Ross did the 8 rings and talked through that for when he performed for lay people, right? And Denny saw it in person, I never knew about Cliff Green and the Phoenix Aces and and how, you know, Denny had gotten to see that, you know, done personally, you know, by Cliff Green. Just all these stories, how he got and kept his college agent, how he got and kept his corporate agent. Just tons of knowledge. So everything, when Denny was getting ready to leave, he said, look, just, you know what? I told you, you can print this thing after I'm dead. I'm not going to be around much longer. Here's everything else I want in here. And I basically took all of that and took the next 2 years basically putting it all together and finishing it. And that's what is in front of us. It's divided into 5 parts. It's his biography first, which is about 150 pages. That has lessons sprinkled in throughout. And the best compliment I got was from Mike Close, who said, you didn't change any of Denny's dialogue. It sounds like Denny's talking to you. If you never knew Denny, you'll know him from reading this. And what was the word he used? Boaterlize. You didn't boaterlize his comments. So there's F words, there's S words. There's some dirty words in this book, believe me, and more so than you think. But that's who he was. He was a no-nonsense, Guy Jarrett sort of guy. He spoke his mind. If you didn't like it, you know, take a hike. But the knowledge, if you were willing to listen to that, the knowledge in there is just vast. So it's his biography, and then it talks about his stand-up material, his 8 core tricks that he made a career out of, and then it talks about the other specialties, the ancillary tricks that he did, including his bullet catch, a method on the bullet catch explained that, and his thinking behind it's great. And then the last part is his thoughts on magic. It's his philosophy, you know, and it was what we just talked about. He said you can buy magic, or you can learn magic. There's 2 different ways. You know, once you learn magic, then you know how to buy magic. So that essay in there, he had an essay called Drinking the Magic Kool-Aid, which relates exactly to some of the things that I've seen you talk about on your show. A lecture called Your Working Library, why you don't just buy a bunch of books, why you're selective in what books you buy and what you think those books are going to give to you. So just tons and tons of stuff. This book, it really is the stand-up DVDs, but times 1,000 in book form. That's exactly what this is. And it's a man who lived it and his story.
And it's available right now. Do you have any deluxe copies left as well? Because I know you.
I held a couple of those back, so I just listed them on my website. Very few. And the copies we're over the halfway point now of this book being gone. And once they're gone, they're gone. I'm not printing any more. I want this to be like the Robert Harbin book or Jarrett's book. It's just, if you got it, you got it. If you didn't, you missed it. Sorry. Because it's not being reprinted again. This is it. So I want it to be one of those books that will live on and carry his thoughts and ideas into the next generation and be sought after. I want it to be like the discovery of witchcraft. Oh my God, you got a copy of that? Where do you get that? You know, because there is a ton of knowledge in there that should be just for the select few who are willing to seek it out, I think.
That's great, and I can tell you're so proud of it.
I love it. Oh my God. Yeah. It's my proudest accomplishment. This thing. I can't believe I did it. I can't believe I did it. And I hope he believes that I was able to do it too. I wish he could have seen the finished thing. I just wish that's my only regret. I wish he could have seen the finished thing. But he lived it, so you know.
Absolutely. That's amazing. Couple of other questions before we wrap this up, Scott. You have, let's go back very quickly to creating. You have your own online shop. You've been very successful as a creator and a publisher of magic. For somebody, and you've talked openly in this interview about people doing it the wrong way, and
sure, yeah.
which is a problem, as you know, that I've got an issue with. For somebody who's wanting to become a creator and a releaser of magic, have you got any advice about how to do it the right way? Because you've put stuff out, you've self-published, you've bought stuff out through Bob Kohler, you've also bought quite a bit of stuff out in the past through Penguin and other companies like that. What do you have any advice for new creators that are wanting to make a name for themselves as a creator? Because it's kind of that thing, isn't it? When you come into magic, creators are put on a pedestal, aren't they? It's kind of like, oh, you know, I want to be the next Greg Wilson, I want to be the next Jay Sankey, I want to be the next whoever it may be.
Right.
Any advice for anybody who wants to be a creator of magic, a seller of magic tricks?
Yeah, go into it with the idea that someone's already thought of it. Approach it with that idea, and I mean that sincerely. Approach it with the idea of, if you come up with this, this new card effect, I've got this new effect, and it's this playing card, and when I do this, it plays. It's a playing card. Get it? Hey, look at that! Wow. Just approach it with the idea that someone else probably thought of it, because they did, right? And maybe they didn't think of it in exactly the same way, but maybe it's almost there, and if you add one thing or change one thing from what they did, you'll have something even better. So always assume someone else has already come up with it, and then first of all, show it to people, see what they think, right? Really do it for audiences, for lay people, not just your magician friends. See what reaction it really garners. Then now show it to magicians and go, look at this. Have you ever seen this before? Have you seen anyone do this before? And don't just ask one, ask a bunch of them. Have you ever seen this? What do you think? And somebody will go, I think, didn't Frank Thompson have some kind of move like that back in? And then actually maybe spend $30 and get on a search engine like Ask Alexander or, what's his name? Dennis Bear's thing, right? That's free. And just bother looking to see if anyone came up with this concept. Just do your due diligence first before you go, hey, Penguin Magic, I got this great idea. Here, let's throw it out there. Because they'll probably take it, because they're not going to do the research, right? And that's not to shine on Penguin. I can mention several other magic companies that won't do the research. They're relying on you as the creator to do the research. So self-police, do the research, and if you have something really cool that's a great idea, it's going to sell anyway. If you have a piece of garbage that somebody else might have thought of and decided not to do and just published it in some set of lecture notes somewhere, well, then you're going to sell a couple of them, and the people are going to go, yeah, that guy's stuff sucks, So do the research, find out if it's cool, show it to a bunch of people, and then approach a magic company with it. Don't come up with it on a Thursday, package it on Friday, and sell it on Monday. That's the basic idea. Take some time.
That's great. And I want to pick up on one more thing that you said earlier on in the interview, which is, and I didn't even know that I was going to ask this question, but crazy stuff has been happening during this interview. Stuff has been dropping from the ceiling. There's chickens, there's God alone knows what. It's confetti. I mean, this is just bonkers. And then you said you're sitting where you do your virtual shows. I did not even know Scott Alexander did virtual shows, but I'm really not surprised.
Yeah. No, of course I do. What else am I going to do right now?
Yeah.
I'm an entertainer at heart, right?
Absolutely. So have you got any advice on, because a lot of people, they're trying to go down the virtual show route, and I have seen some dreadful virtual shows. I've seen some great ones, but I've also seen some that are just not good. Have you got any advice on very quickly on how to kind of take what we do and make it work over Zoom?
Wow. Well, again, try mentalism. No. I took a whole different approach with Zoom, as you can tell by things dropping. I mean, my virtual show is kind of like if Steve Martin from the 70s did a magic show on Zoom, right? Basically, that's the idea, right? He's one of my heroes. So I basically, to make a Zoom show work, of course, there's three aspects. There's your personality. Can you translate through the screen, right? Are you compelling to watch? Two is the material, what you're going to do. Is it interesting? Does it fit in this frame? And how can you reframe it? Great trick I just put in the show. This thing, older than dirt, a Kovari, but hey, this works great on Zoom. Am I right? Am I right? Huh?
Yeah, it would, yeah.
It's a brilliant piece of magic, and it fits in this frame perfectly, and it bothers people, right? They really want to touch it. They want to get their hands on it. But that's the great thing about Zoom. You can't touch it. You can't examine it. I can prove it. I can show it, but you don't get the grabby hands, of that. The great thing is also on Zoom is that this deck of cards, this can be as large or as small as you want it to be. You're in control of this. Again, it's like doing a close-up parlor show, a close-up stand-up show, which is terrific. And the other thing that you have to be also, which is with anything, is you have to have the technical aspect of it, right? You have to make sure it's smooth, it looks good, and that people want to see it and want to watch it. So there is a little bit of an investment and learning curve in making all of this, look good. So, and there are plenty of videos on YouTube you can watch. I'm sure there are plenty of articles that have been written on how to do the best Zoom show. I think McBride has some classes on it with Paul Draper. Everybody's got their own take on it, but find yourself what looks good in this window, make it look good, and make it entertaining. And I mean, that would be the only thing I can say. For me, it just became a funny comedy show. I'm not trying to read people's minds through the screen. I'm just giving them a good time and helping them forget about what's going on right now.
Perfect. One last question before we finish this whole thing off. And this is a question I ask a lot of the guests on this this channel.
What?
And it's especially pertinent to you, which is what's next. And what I mean by that, and I know you're a very humble guy in many ways, but what I'm gonna tell you right now, you've had the career that most magicians would dream of. We've talked about everything you've accomplished as a performer, but you're also highly regarded as a creator, one of the top creators in magic, in my opinion. As you know, you've done so much. If you retired tomorrow, your legacy is set. But I know that you're not going to slow down, because that's not you. So
no, not at all.
Yeah, exactly. So what's coming up now? Like, is there anything left on your magical bucket list? Let's just assume that the world's going back to normal. We're not going to go and become an episode of The Walking Dead and everything goes fine. Yeah, exactly. Let's just assume that we will go back to normal. Yeah. What are you wanting to achieve? Is there anything you left to do? And would you eventually write your own book?
Now that I've finished this book and I know how to do it, yes, I would write my own book. I have some thoughts on it, and when I do, it's going to be. I think I'm going to pick a certain. I thought about this the other day. If I did it, I would probably pick a certain age that I arrived at. Right, so whether it's 55 or 60 or 62, whatever it is, 52. That I would pick that number of tricks to go into the book, right? And then that would be the book. It would be my thoughts on these 50 things or 60 things I created, because there's stuff that I could put in there that's like a half an idea that someone else, I'm going to let float away and let someone else grab, right? So 60 finished things or completed things from start to finish, and I'll include some of my favorite stuff and the new thoughts I have on them that didn't make the DVD of Velocity or didn't make the DVD of Applejacked or didn't make the DVD of whatever. So yeah, I'll pick a number, whatever that number is, of selected effects, and that'll be the book, and I'll put a little bit of bio in it. But yeah, but the next thing really for me that I really am thinking about is I want to I started over here in the U.S. I founded a nonprofit organization, right? I got the letter from the government, says you're an official nonprofit, and it's called the Yogi Magical Arts Foundation, and it's basically named after Phil Thomas's Yogi Magic Mart. His daughter gave me permission to use the name Yogi, and because that's where Denny learned. That's where I learned when I was 10, right? He was kind of the dealer of the East Coast back in the day. And what I'm intending to do, big plans, I want to have a museum. I want to have classroom, stage, place for people to learn magic. I want to have online content where I talk about old tricks like stuff from Hoffman that I've collected that are in the museum that you actually see demonstrated that you've never seen before, right? So demonstrate that online. So I want to try to recreate some of that magic to try to inspire new magic for the future. I want to give out some scholarships to some serious students of magic. I want to have some kids write book reports on magic books and send them to me for a $200 prize or $300 prize, or for tuition to magic camp, whatever. But anyway, that's the plan, to try to take this foundation and inspire people to not only honor the history of magic, but to help kind of push these new magicians into the future the right way, I think. So that's the idea.
That is amazing. That is amazing. Because I know that something that you're really passionate about, that unfortunately a lot of newer people into magic aren't as much is the history of magic and standing on the shoulders of giants and knowing where we've come from. And
that's that humility too. You have to remember, you wouldn't be doing this or whatever you're doing if it weren't for them, right? So show them a little respect, learn a little bit about them, right? That's all. That's all. You don't have to wallow in it, like I do, or obsess about, oh, who came up with that concept. But just know that they existed, and give them a nod. That's all. And that's what this museum and teaching is going to be about, I think. So it's just started. It's brand new. It's just literally not even cracked out of the shell yet. But the structure and framework of it is there. So over the next decade, I'm hoping to expand that out into something like that. So that's the next.
I know you, and you when you put your mind to something, it just happens.
And I'll still perform. I'm still going to perform. I'll perform until the hook has to come out and drag me off. And if I could reach my hook, I would go grab it right now.
And in terms of products, do you have other stuff that you're planning on releasing over the next maybe 6 to 12 months?
Yeah. There's a whole bunch of stuff. Denny had written a set of lecture notes back in '92. I already mentioned that. And he had given me a whole bunch of revisions he wanted to the notes. New stuff, updates. Instead of referencing Radio Shack, you talk about Best Buy, changing the names of the illusions to newer ones that he would suggest, more modern sound advice. Just modernized and annotated. So I'm going to release his. And once the book hit 500 pages, there was no more room for it, or the thing would have passed its printing limit. So I'm releasing that as its own set of lecture notes, Denny's notes, but an annotated version. So that's coming out sometime in the mid-spring, summer. And I'm also releasing a little booklet, kind of like my booklet with Real Magic, but it's on this, which I use. Where the heck is it? The Sixth Finger, right? The Vernet finger.
Yeah.
By Decolta. I found so many different uses for this thing that I never knew existed in magic. Aikido used this thing in a cool way. Decolta used this thing in a cool way. There's jokes, gags, lines, tricks, productions, vanishes, all done with this one gimmick. So it's going to be called Scott Alexander Gives You the Finger. And and it's going to come with a whole bunch of different routines and ideas and things with that nobody's touched that thing in years, and it does some cool stuff. So that's one of the next things coming out.
Well, you mentioned it. I'll say it now. If people haven't seen your book on Real Magic, it's amazing. Your work on the reel is just, and I haven't seen anybody else ever explore that really.
No, the last really booklet of any substance on it was written by Albanese back in the 30s or 40s, I think. Tannen's published it. It was called Real Magic. Title was given to me by Alon New, which is Shit Just Got Real, right? So yeah, and that book also has a little video in the back of the demonstration. So I'm morphing into that, combining the printed word with the video. So the Denny book too has a QR code where you can go in and you can watch video of Denny's act combined with reading the book. So I'm trying to link old school and new school and kind of, bridge that gap is what I'm trying to do.
Fantastic. Yeah. Scott, this interview has been absolutely brilliant. I said it at the beginning and I said it again. Thank you so much for finding time. I know you're all over the place. I know you're busy performing, creating. You never stop. You're one of the hardest working people in magic.
Thank you.
What more can I say?
Exactly.
That. Scott, one more time, just give us your URL for your shop so that people can go check out your stuff.
ScottAlexanderMagic.com. Right there. There you go.
There you go. Go check out Scott's stuff. He is responsible for probably 90% of my act. Scott, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you. You're too kind, Craig. You're too kind.
And on that note, guys, thanks very much for watching the interview. Make sure you come back tomorrow. We're going to have another video. I'll see you then. Thanks very much for watching. Take care. Bye, everybody.